Wait, there's actually good news in the PC gaming hardware news video? Oh my goodness, this is crazy. I mean, it's not good news like prices are crashing, but it's actually more of a retraction of some bad news. And there's some other good news stories, some other interesting stories. We've got a lot to talk about today, but again, let's start with some good news. So recently I reported that there were insider sources saying that AMD's CPU pricing would be increasing, but Tom's Hardware seems to have reached out to their industry contacts and are saying that they haven't heard or seen any indication of raising Ryzen CPU pricing. So now you're basically looking at Tom's Hardware's insider sources versus, I think it was the OC3D insider sources that had reported on this being an increase. And you have to weigh which one you believe more, but at least we have some sign that it might not actually be a CPU increase. Now, really, the big issue right now is RAM pricing, but at least it's something, guys. I'm trying to bring you something positive after being so negative so much. Also, we do, though, have Tom's Hardware reaching out for confirmation about the GPU price increases, and they are confirming it. Although they're giving the dollar amount of $10 for every 8 gigabytes. So $10 for an 8 gigabyte GPU, $20 for a 16 gigabyte GPU, which is less than what we had seen previously reported. All my sources will be in the video description. Where we had seen $20 for 8 gigabyte GPUs and $40 for 16 gigabyte GPUs. Although Tom's Hardware sources are saying another price hike is scheduled for January, and potentially that's more of what this one is getting at, so maybe that one's not actually getting better. Also, I have a little more of not necessarily silver lining, but at least a maybe not quite as negative look on the news I reported yesterday about Micron abandoning consumer SSDs and RAM with their crucial products being killed off. But first, some other good news. Last time I did a Q&A video, I was expecting a bunch of tech questions. I got some, but mostly I got questions about how do I manage my insane schedule teaching math full-time while also doing this YouTube channel and having kids, taking them to gymnastics, piano, all of that. Also, I fit in my playing guitar, getting in deadlifts. How am I doing it? Well, honestly, I have to plan my schedule peak efficiency. Like I'm filming this in between sets of deadlift on my lunch break. And to manage a crazy schedule, you should check out Akiflow. They're the all-in-one solution that brings essential productivity tools into a universal inbox that works as your second brain when your current one isn't enough. While the one calendar is the perfect set for realistic planning. With time slots, it's easy to organize time block tasks, and lock them to appear across calendars. The Kanban view helps structure each day, week, or month, and the natural language recognition makes easy to plan tasks. While Aki, the AI executive assistant, works proactively to boost productivity, it improves daily habits, creates automations with a simple prompt, automatically organizes tasks into projects, and offers smart nudges to improve how you use your time. Finally, Akiflow's daily rituals offer a moment to review daily progress and planning, while productivity stats can reveal trends and insights over time. Check the sponsored link in the video description and/or pinned comment to improve your time management and efficiency and productivity today with Akiflow. All right, so in yesterday's video, we talked about Micron killing off their consumer SSD and RAM sales through their crucial branding. Now, the reason given is definitely to focus everything towards AI data center where there's more money. However, one thing I ended up pinning a comment shortly after posting the video and watching it back, because one thing I'd intended to say but realized I hadn't completely explicitly made clear in that video is that Micron's announcement doesn't explicitly state that they aren't going to still manufacture PC RAM that could then be sold to other businesses who then slap their label on it. Like when you buy like Corsair RAM or whatever brand RAM, they can source those RAM chips from SK Hynix, Samsung, and Micron. Now, Micron is no longer going to sell directly to the consumer under the crucial branding, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to sell RAM to other brands in a business-to-business deal, and then those brands still sell the RAM. So I think in the end, this is still pretty negative because them not selling under their Crucial branding certainly means that there's some supply that's no longer hitting the market. And it certainly is pointing that they want to shift their resources toward AI data center. But it might at least be less bad than them saying that they're just literally not manufacturing RAM to be used in PCs at all anymore. Because they didn't say that. They're just no longer selling directly to the consumer under the Crucial branding. So again, this is still pretty negative, but I'm trying to at least find a slightly more positive take because the theme today is more positive news. Speaking of positive news, this one is genuinely positive. I can't think of a negative take on this one. So when the RTX 50 series launched, one of the downsides to it was the fact that it no longer had PhysX support in 32-bit implementations of PhysX. Now, in the latest driver update, this is kind of buried. So they did a big post on there being a new Battlefield 6 optimized driver, focusing on the getting ready for the Winter Offensive Battlefield 6 update, and talking about their introduction, the multi-frame gen support, etc., all of that. But buried within this is a mention that they are adding back PhysX support for not all 32-bit game implementations, but the most popular ones. So they're saying that the GTX RTX 50 series GPUs launched at the beginning of the year alongside phasing out 32-bit support for CUDA, which meant that PhysX in a number of older yet beloved games were not GPU accelerated on the RTX 50 series. I had reported on that in previous videos. They've heard the feedback from the community, and with the launch of their new driver, they're adding custom support for GeForce Gamers' most played physics-accelerated games, enabling full performance on RTX 50 series GPUs in line with our existing PhysX support on prior generation GPUs. So basically, with the new driver, these are the games that they have got support for. So it's not the full list of 32-bit PhysX-supported games, but it's certainly hitting a bunch of them. We're getting some of the big ones like Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, Batman Arkham City, and Arkham Origins. Notably absent is Arkham Asylum, but they do append the note here that support for Batman Arkham Asylum is planned to be added in the first part of 2026. So whether other games are coming, I don't know, but it looks like they're at least working on Batman Arkham Asylum. We're also getting Borderlands 2, Mafia 2, Metro 2033, and Last Light, Mirror's Edge. So most of the big ones that people said, hey, I actually play that game sometimes, right? Now, again, it's not the full list of games, so not everything's here. It's not absolutely perfect, but it is at least an improvement. So that's good news, right? We're focusing on the good news, guys. Now, is it annoying that this was phased out in the first place? Yes. But is it good news that we're getting some support back? Yes. And we are focusing on the positives today. Now, another positive we can focus on is that it's possible that the price increases on gaming consoles, at least some of it, could maybe be kept in check a little bit by this update. So you may have noticed that Xbox consoles have actually been getting more expensive, despite apparently not selling anywhere near as well as PlayStation, and also having been out for a number of years. Now, this is for a variety of reasons, but one of the reasons is that the location, the manufacturing location can affect all of the tariff implementations and all sorts of things. So it's looking like Foxconn, who has a subsidiary, Luxshare, who produces things in Vietnam rather than China, is looking to add millions more production to game console outputs. It's being listed here as likely targeting an annual production of 4.8 million Xbox consoles, parts, and other devices. To go into that Vietnam production line. So basically, it's looking like a shift that could help rein in some, at least more price increases based on this. Now, if RAM prices go out of control, certainly seems like Xbox has been increasing prices rather than take a hit to their margins. So, okay, fine. Again, we're focusing on the positives, though. At least some element of this production chain on consoles could be getting to a point where it's at least less effective by things like tariffs on Chinese production, etc. Now, here's another thing that I find really interesting. So the Steam Machine announcement got tons of buzz, but one of the things that, my video on the topic was saying a lot of people are missing something cool with this, and I focused on the Steam Frame, the VR headset, how it was talking about running SteamOS, like actual SteamOS, on an ARM chip. And they talked about the translation layers and emulation layers necessary to make that happen. And I was saying that's potentially a really big deal because that means you could have Steam OS running on phones. You could be playing Windows games on phones or other ARM-based devices. This could open Valve up to producing all sorts of interesting devices running on ARM, which at low power targets, ARM can be more better performance per watt at extremely low power consumption targets. So if you wanted even lower power than a current Steam Deck, that kind of thing, that I was like, this opens up all sorts of stuff if this is actually running well, and they get it to a point where you can play a lot of games here, you're not seeing a ton of problems. Now, there's an interview with The Verge, again, all my sources in the video description, where Valve talks about this a lot more. Like the headline here, Steam Machine today, Steam phones tomorrow. And it's talking about the fact that, so a lot of this is relying on, I was going to click on things, show things. No, I'm not subscribed to The Verge. Sorry. Anyway, so I'll paraphrase. Again, source will be linked in the video description. This is kind of funny in a live video. Anyway, whatever. The point is that, whoa, my camera just glitched out too. We're having all sorts of interesting things, but we're focusing on the positives. Like my camera's glitching out again. That's a positive. It's interesting, right? This doesn't usually happen. Maybe if I turn it off and on again, it'll glitch out. Getting more of a wide angle view here, guys. It's cool. It's different. It's glitching out again. There we go. We're back to the normal shot. It's glitching out again. I'm just going to keep talking. You can figure out what's going on with my camera. Anyway, what was I saying about the Steam Machine? ARM. So in this interview, which is really interesting, recommend reading it, they talk about the I think it's PhysX, I wish I had my source here to pull up, PhysX, which is this emulation for the Windows calls on the ARM-based devices that they're relying on a lot here. And what they've revealed is, there's been development going on with that for a long time. Valve has basically been bankrolling and pushing that initiative all along because they knew they're saying like a decade ago that the kind of work involved here could be like a decade of work to get this into functional stuff. So Valve has been playing the long game here. I think they saw long ago that, hey, like phones, ARM devices, all of that, that's huge. We need to get Steam games working there. And they've done it. It's actually in a pretty good shape right now. It's not as good as like just using Proton, to play games on Linux. But the idea here is having a SteamOS install on an ARM-based device that should just run SteamOS just flawlessly. If things work on SteamOS, they work on your ARM-based device. And yeah, there's some emulation happening with some CPU-based performance cost on the ARM device currently. But in the end, this is really cool. This is good news, and I'm excited to see where this goes because I can certainly imagine myself having like a phone ARM-based device with a SteamOS install, stick on some gaming controllers, and I have access to play my Steam library on my phone. I think that's really cool. So again, there's some cool stuff happening out there, guys. It's not all completely doom and gloom. Now, just in the whole, just kind of wider space of what's happening, a lot of this is depending on what is going on with the AI market. Like, right, this is driving everything, all this crazy stuff, the supply chain stuff, the pricing stuff, and a lot of bigger things. It's weird having talked about tech news for so long and suddenly having like Nvidia and what's going on with them like be like global news, political implications, but that's kind of where we're at. Anyway, A big focus right now is like, so is China gonna start catching up in AI and eventually be a huge competitor to Nvidia and kind of more of that Western product stack? Well, at least in a conversation with Nvidia's CEO Jensen Huang, there is some discussion about that and the what that could look like in the future. We're also getting some projections of what's going on here. Now, this projection is talking about the China domestic demand for AI and how much that their local supply can meet their local demand. So they're saying that like we're in 2025, right? That basically their local supply can meet 40% of their local demand for, AI data center, AI compute, that kind of stuff. But they're projecting that by 2027, they could be meeting 57%, and by 2028, they could be meeting 104% of their projected local demand using local supply. And that's more than what they need, meaning past that point, it could be China exporting. In other words, trying to get global stuff relying on their product stack. Now, I don't want to talk about this as like good or bad, because that really kind of depends on your perspective, what part of the world you're in. And the point of my channel isn't political. But the idea here in general is like, is Nvidia going to continue to just be kind of a monopoly? Well, China is trying to kind of ban the import of the Nvidia products for AI in order to get its domestic production up. In general, like my overall opinion is that competition is good and prices go down. Like that's my general just outlook on global competition and stuff. Also, some people have been thinking about, okay, so our RAM situation with consumer RAM prices going through the roof because data centers are buying all of it up. Can we get some more competition in there? And some people have been wondering, does this open up a space for Chinese fabs to produce consumer RAM and then enter that space and drive down pricing, et cetera? So again, just stuff to keep an eye on is when we've got all of this supply and demand going crazy, causing prices to go crazy, one way to get that in check is competition. And I'm just kind of reporting on what that looks like here. Again, based on your political leanings, the part of the world that you're in, the country that you're in, all of that, you can take this as positives or negatives. Nvidia's CEO, of course, is warning this as a negative and to keep your eye out and try to, but of course, obviously they're, taking it from their perspective. Now, last couple of news topics I want to mention is some leaks of some AMD APUs that are coming in. However, this isn't necessarily big like gaming desktop parts, so I don't want to make like a big deal out of it. And leaked performance, like, okay, whatever. Apparently my camera's glitching out again. Look at that. We get the wider angle shot. Maybe I'm coming back for the close-up. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to have to look at my camera after this video. But we're just going to push on through because I got to go put up Christmas lights as soon as my kids get home. So this is my one take, guys. That's what you get. Anyway, AMD Ryzen AI 5 430 Gorgon CPU leaks out, which would be a 4 cores and has a faster Radeon 840M GPU, which is up to 19% faster than the Ryzen AI 5 330. In other words, for this product segment of the market, the newer generation part should have a faster iGPU, which again, focusing on the good news, that means that products in this kind of performance class in the new generation could have a faster GPU. That's good news. What would be bad news if the products in this segment are way more expensive due to all of this stuff, and they probably will be. But today we're trying to focus on the positives, guys, okay? The other thing we have is Zen 6 Medusa Point surfaces in NBD manifest with surprising high TDP and low TDP variants. In other words, we have a shipping manifest thing where we see Medusa FP10 high TDP, And we see Medusa FP10 low TDP. In other words, we've heard about Medusa Point. I've talked about it before. This article, again, this is a WCCF Tech article where I found this. All my sources in the video description, is reminding us that this is a Zen 6 architecture, 10 to 22 cores, 45 watt to 28 watt RDNA 3.5 8 compute unit GPU. So that's the kind of product that we're talking about here. And we weren't necessarily expecting there to be a high TDP, low TDP variant here. So that's why this is kind of interesting. Anyway, that's the news I've got for you guys today. We tried to focus on the positives. We found some good news out there. Hopefully you guys have an excellent day.